Decisiveness varies drastically amongst people. I happen to be a very decisive person, which defies the stereotype of my astrological sign, which is Libra. Another proof point that you can't really understand who someone is just based on their sun sign. You really need to know their entire astrological chart. My mom, on the other hand, was not particularly decisive, especially when it came to major life decisions. She always leaned on my dad and us kids to a lesser extent whenever she was grappling with what to do during a consequential moment. My dad also happens to be very decisive, and so it really worked out well in their relationship because he always had an opinion and she usually would take his opinion to heart and then follow that direction. However, when my mom's brain cancer relapsed again and there were no other conventional treatment options left for her to pursue, she was faced with the decision about whether or not to do an experimental trial at a research institute in New York City that would require her to travel from her home in Wichita, Kansas to my apartment in New York City, basically for the rest of her life, with no guarantee that the trial drug would even work. My dad, my sister, and I made a pact to not make the decision for my mom about the experimental trial, which is captured in the moments I included for November 21st through 23rd in my book, Losing Linda May, A Cancer Caregiving Memoir. You know what feels awful? Contributing to the stress levels of your loved one who has a potentially terminal illness, because in these moments, all my mom wanted from us was just to tell her what to do. That's what she expected that we would do. But in this particular situation, we weren't comfortable making this decision for her for these reasons. One, we didn't want her to resent us for either decision. So if we told her to do the experimental trial, we didn't want her to blame us for all the mental and physical stress that would be involved with traveling to and from Wichita, Kansas, and New York City, and all the diagnostic tests and taking all the pills and just the general uncertainty of it all. And we also didn't want her to blame us for her death if we told her not to do the trial. We also didn't want to harbor the guilt for the rest of our lives for telling her not to do the trial, which is where we were all leaning at the time, because there was a chance, even if it was minuscule, that the trial drug could work and prolong her life months or even years. And if we told her not to do it, then we would always have the question of what if looming over us. Maybe we ended her life prematurely by telling her not to do the trial, and none of us wanted to bear that. And equally important, we didn't want her to feel like we had given up on her, even though we felt like her prospects of living were very slim at that moment. And we knew that if we told her not to do the trial, it would be immediately interpreted in her mind that we had given up on her, even though it was actually just us wrestling with the fact that the likelihood that it would be successful is so low. And we didn't want her to go through the torture of traveling to and from New York City so much and just the burden of it. We wanted her last months to be as peaceful and calm and quiet as possible and just surrounded by her loved ones. We knew that was not going to be the case with this experimental trial, but we knew that she would not be receptive of us even saying it in that way. All she would hear is that you want me to die. 10 years later, I still think that my family and I handled this the best way possible, because whenever my mom would ask what she should do, we just gave her the pros and cons. We gave her all the things that we were wrestling with. We just didn't do the next step of telling her what we thought that she should do. And we held strong, even though she hurled a lot of accusations at us, including the fact that she thought we were torturing her, which is included in one of the moments for November 23rd in my book. Ultimately, my mom chose to do the trial, which I don't think would have happened had we all weighed in. And the moment that she made that decision, her entire disposition changed. This tension that had been built up just seemed to dissipate. And I don't think that would have occurred if she just followed whatever we thought was best for her, because she would have still been wrestling with whether or not what we thought was best for her was actually the right path forward, especially if we told her not to do the trial, because that would have forced her to really contend with her mortality. So if you ever find yourself in this situation, I highly recommend withholding your opinion from your loved one about what they should do, because it is ultimately their choice to make. You can give them the pros and cons, you can be a sounding board, but you should not tell them what they should do, as uncomfortable as that may be for everyone involved. In the next video I'll be releasing on November 25th, I will be talking about the significance of Thanksgiving to my family. So hit subscribe, leave any questions in the comments. The link to my book is in the description, and I will see you all then.